The engine coughs to life in the gray stillness before dawn. A lone Nieuport 17 lifts off from Filescamp Farm, its wings catching the first pale light of June 2nd, 1917. There is no formation, no wingman, no witnesses. Just one Canadian pilot climbing toward German lines. 12 miles behind the front, a German aerodrome materializes through morning mist. 7 aircraft sit on the ground, engines warming. Mechanics move between them, preparing for the day's patrols. The Nieuport dives. What happened in the next few minutes would earn Billy Bishop the Victoria Cross and make him the most celebrated ace in the British Empire. It would also become one of the most disputed missions in aviation history. Where the truth lies, somewhere in that gray dawn, remains uncertain to this day. The road to that aerodrome began not in a cockpit, but in the mud. William Avery Bishop was born on February 8, 1894, in Owen Sound, Ontario. His father was a lawyer and county registrar. His mother, a woman of strong will, who pushed her children toward respectability. The Bishops were comfortable, middle class, unremarkable. Nothing about young Billy suggested future greatness. He was, by most accounts, a mediocre student with a talent for finding trouble. At the Royal Military College in Kingston, where he enrolled in 1911, Bishop distinguished himself primarily through his failures. He nearly faced expulsion in his first year after being caught cheating on an examination. His academic performance remained poor throughout. What he possessed instead was a natural gift for horsemanship, a sharp eye with a rifle, and an appetite for recognition that his circumstances could not satisfy. When war came in the summer of 1914, Bishop saw his chance. He secured a commission in the Mississauga Horse, a cavalry regiment preparing to ship overseas with the Canadian Expeditionary Force. He imagined charges across open fields, sabers flashing, glory won on horseback. The Western Front had other plans. By the time Bishop reached England, cavalry was already obsolete. The war had become a grinding industrial nightmare of trenches, barbed wire, and artillery. Horses died in the mud alongside men. The charges never came. Instead, Bishop found himself stuck in endless training exercises, waiting for a role that no longer existed. The transformation came on an unremarkable day in 1915. Bishop was trudging through another rain-soaked field when an aircraft passed overhead. He stopped and watched it climb into the gray sky, clean and fast, untouched by the filth below. The pilot was fighting a different war up there, a war of individual skill and daring, far above the anonymous slaughter of the trenches. Bishop reportedly turned to a companion and said, "It's clean up there. They don't have to wallow in the mud. I'm going to transfer." He did. In July 1915, Bishop applied for the Royal Flying Corps. He was accepted, though not as a pilot. The RFC needed observers first, men who could spot enemy positions and direct artillery from the air. Bishop trained for this unglamorous role, and by 1916, found himself in France with no 21 Squadron, sitting in the rear seat of a 2-seater reconnaissance aircraft, watching the war unfold below. It was during this period that Bishop's path nearly ended. A rough landing injured his knee badly enough to require months of recovery in England. For most men, this would have meant frustration, lost time, a setback. Bishop saw opportunity. During his convalescence, he applied for pilot training and was accepted. By late 1916, he had earned his wings. In March 1917, Bishop was assigned to No. 60 Squadron RFC at Filescamp Farm, near Arras in northern France. He would fly the Nieuport 17, a nimble French-designed fighter armed with a single Lewis gun mounted on the upper wing. The aircraft was light, maneuverable, and unforgiving of error. The same could be said of aerial combat itself. Bishop's early days with the squadron did not inspire confidence. He was considered reckless by fellow pilots, prone to abandoning formation and taking unnecessary risks. His flying was aggressive but sloppy. Some wondered if he would survive long enough to become competent. But his squadron commander, Major Alan Scott, saw something in the Canadian. He gave Bishop room to develop his own approach to fighting. On March 25, 1917, Bishop claimed his first victory. he spotted an Albatros D-3 near Saint-Léger and attacked. The German pilot never saw him coming. Bishop fired, and the Albatros fell, spinning toward the earth below. He watched it go down, feeling the strange mixture of terror and exhilaration that every fighter pilot knows. He had killed a man, he had survived, he wanted to do it again. What followed was one of the bloodiest months in the history of aerial warfare. April 1917 would become known as Bloody April, and the statistics tell a grim story. The Royal Flying Corps lost 245 aircraft that month. 211 pilots were killed or listed as missing. For a new pilot arriving at a frontline squadron, the average life expectancy was 17 days. The reasons for this slaughter were multiple. German aircraft, particularly the Albatros D-3, outclassed most Allied fighters in speed and firepower. German pilots were experienced and fought defensively over their own territory, able to land safely if damaged, while British pilots faced capture or death. The RFC's aggressive doctrine demanded constant offensive patrols, pushing exhausted pilots over enemy lines again and again. It was a formula for attrition, and the British were losing. Against this backdrop, Billy Bishop began to hunt. He claimed 12 victories in April alone. While pilots around him died at a rate that would empty the squadron within weeks, Bishop kept returning. By the end of May, he had 22 confirmed victories and had been awarded both the Military Cross and the Distinguished Service Order. He was becoming famous. Part of his survival lay in the tactics he developed. Unlike most pilots, who flew in formation for mutual protection, Bishop increasingly operated alone. He called it lone wolf hunting. He would take off before dawn or linger after other patrols returned, searching for targets of opportunity. He attacked aggressively, often diving on enemy formations that outnumbered him, gambling that surprise and violence would overcome the odds. This approach was either genius or madness, depending on who was asked. It certainly produced results. But it also meant that many of Bishop's victories occurred without witnesses. When a pilot in formation scored a kill, his comrades could confirm it. When Bishop killed alone, only his word and whatever wreckage could be found below served as evidence. This would matter later. For now, it only added to his legend. There was also the question of what filled the vacancy left by Britain's previous hero. On May 7, 1917, Captain Albert Ball, the RFC's most celebrated ace with 44 victories, was killed in combat. Ball had been everything the public wanted in a fighter pilot. Young, dashing, romantic. His death left a void. The Empire needed another hero. Billy Bishop stepped into that space. He was young, Canadian, fearless, and his victory count kept climbing. The propaganda machinery of the British war effort began to take notice. Here was a man who could match the German aces, who could give the public something to celebrate amid the endless casualty lists. Yet beneath the bravado, Bishop was not the simple hero the newspapers portrayed. His private letters revealed a different man. He wrote of fear, of the grinding stress of combat, of watching friends die and wondering when his turn would come. He drank heavily to manage the strain. He could not sleep without nightmares. The killer who climbed into his cockpit each morning was also a frightened young man who understood the mathematics of survival and knew they worked against him. By the end of May 1917, Billy Bishop had 22 victories and a growing reputation. He was among the top aces in the Royal Flying Corps, but not yet legendary. That was about to change. On the night of June 1st, 1917, he conceived a mission unlike any he had flown before. He would attack a German aerodrome alone, at dawn, behind enemy lines. No authorization, no witnesses, just one pilot against an entire airfield. What happened next would define his legacy forever. The plan was audacious to the point of absurdity. Bishop would take off alone in the pre-dawn darkness, fly 12 miles behind German lines, locate an enemy aerodrome, and attack it at low altitude. He would catch the Germans before they could get their aircraft into the air, destroying them on the ground where they were vulnerable. Then he would fight his way home through whatever opposition arose. No RFC pilot had attempted anything like it. The risks were extraordinary. At low altitude, Bishop would be exposed to ground fire from every direction. If his engine failed over enemy territory, he would be killed or captured. If German fighters caught him alone, outnumbered, and far from friendly lines, he would almost certainly die. The mission made sense only if surprise was complete and luck held absolutely. Bishop told no one of his intentions. He did not seek authorization from his commanding officer. He simply decided that he would do it. And on the night of June 1st, 1917, he prepared his aircraft for an early departure. Whatever drove him, whether ambition or fatalism or some private calculus of glory, remained his alone. He slept little that night. At 3:57 on the morning of June 2nd, with the sky still gray and the sun not yet risen, Billy Bishop lifted off from Filescamp Farm and turned east toward German territory. The air was cold at altitude, the engine loud in the morning stillness. Below, the trenches of the Western Front stretched north and south in their familiar zigzag patterns, the no-man's land between them cratered and barren. Bishop crossed the front lines and continued east, climbing slightly, watching the ground for landmarks. He was alone in the sky. If any German observers spotted him, they did not raise an alarm. According to Bishop's account, he first located an aerodrome that appeared empty. No aircraft were visible on the field. He continued southeast, searching for a more promising target. After several minutes, he found what he was looking for. An aerodrome with 7 aircraft on the ground, their engines running, mechanics moving between them in preparation for the morning's patrols. The Germans had no idea he was above them. Bishop pushed the nose of his Nieuport down and dove. What followed, as he later reported it, was a savage few minutes of low-altitude combat. He came in at approximately 50 feet, firing at the aircraft and personnel on the ground. A mechanic who had been starting one of the engines was seen to fall. Bishop's bullets raked across the parked machines. Then, the Germans began to react. One aircraft managed to take off, climbing desperately to meet the attacker. Bishop turned on it immediately. At 60 feet altitude, barely above the ground, he fired 15 rounds into the ascending machine. It crashed back onto the aerodrome, destroyed before it could gain enough height to fight. A second aircraft got off the ground. Bishop engaged it at 150 yards, emptying 30 rounds into the fuselage and engine. This machine fell into a tree at the edge of the field. 2 more aircraft rose from the aerodrome, their pilots scrambling to get airborne and defend their base. Bishop attacked the third aircraft at a height of 1,000 feet, emptying the rest of his ammunition drum. The German machine crashed 300 yards from the aerodrome. He reloaded and poured an entire drum into the 4th hostile machine. By now, the aerodrome was chaos. Smoke rose from wrecked aircraft. Ground crew scattered for cover. The attack had lasted only minutes, but the damage was devastating. As Bishop turned for home, 4 German scouts appeared above him, perhaps 1,000 feet higher. He was alone, his ammunition depleted, his aircraft already damaged by ground fire. The German pilots had every advantage, but for reasons Bishop never understood, they did not attack. They shadowed him for approximately a mile, then broke off and disappeared. Bishop flew west, nursing his damaged aircraft back toward friendly lines. The Nieuport had been hit repeatedly by machine gun fire from the ground. Fabric was torn, struts were damaged, and the aircraft handled poorly. But it held together long enough to cross the front lines and reach Filescamp Farm. When Bishop landed, the ground crew counted 17 bullet holes in his aircraft. His Lewis gun had jammed during the combat, limiting his available firepower during the later engagements. He was exhausted, covered in oil and sweat, but uninjured. He had attacked a German aerodrome single-handed and returned alive. That morning, Bishop filed his combat report describing the mission. He claimed 3 aircraft destroyed on the ground and 3 more shot down in the air, with a 4th damaged. It was an extraordinary tally for a single sortie, the kind of achievement that would have been remarkable for an entire squadron. The report moved up the chain of command. Bishop's superiors had no reason to doubt him. His aircraft showed clear evidence of heavy combat. His previous victory claims had been accepted without question. The lone wolf tactics he employed were unusual, but not unprecedented. If he said he had attacked an aerodrome and destroyed 6 aircraft, then that was what had happened. The recommendation for the Victoria Cross followed swiftly. The VC was the highest military honor in the British Empire, awarded for acts of extraordinary valor in the face of the enemy. Bishop's Dawn Raid seemed to exemplify everything the medal was meant to recognize. Alone, outnumbered, deep in enemy territory, he had attacked with reckless courage and emerged victorious. It was the stuff of legend. On August 11, 1917, the award was officially announced. The citation described the mission in detail. For most conspicuous bravery, determination, and skill, it read, Captain Bishop, who had been sent out to work independently, flew first to an enemy aerodrome. Finding no machine about, he flew on to another aerodrome about 3 miles southeast, which was at least 12 miles the other side of the line. 7 machines, some with their engines running, were on the ground. He attacked these from about 50 feet. The citation continued, detailing each aircraft destroyed, each engagement fought, the ground fire that riddled his machine. It concluded by noting that his aircraft was very badly shot about by machine gun fire from the ground. The language was precise, official, permanent. Billy Bishop was now a Victoria Cross recipient, one of the most decorated soldiers in the British Empire. The reaction was immediate. Newspapers across Britain and Canada celebrated the young Canadian ace who had single-handedly raided a German aerodrome. His photograph appeared on front pages. His name became synonymous with aerial daring. He was no longer merely a skilled pilot. He was a symbol of Allied courage, proof that individual heroism could still matter in a war of industrial slaughter. Bishop embraced the fame. Unlike some aces who shunned publicity, he understood the value of his image. He gave interviews, posed for photographs, and played the part of the dashing hero with evident skill. The propaganda machinery of the British war effort had found its champion. Yet the very elements that made the mission legendary also made it vulnerable. There had been no witnesses to the attack itself. No other pilot had accompanied Bishop. No ground observers had watched the aerodrome burn. The only evidence was Bishop's own report, his damaged aircraft, and the official acceptance of his account. At the time, no one questioned this. The RFC's verification system accepted pilot claims based on combat reports and whatever corroborating evidence could be gathered. In the chaos of aerial warfare, precise confirmation was often impossible. Pilots claimed victories in good faith, and commanders accepted those claims unless there was reason for doubt. For Billy Bishop, in the summer of 1917, there was no doubt. He was the Victoria Cross hero, the Empire's answer to the Red Baron, the pilot who had done what no one else dared attempt. The questions that would later haunt his legacy were still 70 years away. The Victoria Cross transformed Billy Bishop from ace to icon. In the weeks following the announcement, his fame spread across the British Empire. Newspapers competed to tell his story. His photograph hung in shop windows. Schoolchildren knew his name. He had become something more than a pilot. He was a symbol of what courage could achieve against impossible odds. Bishop continued flying through the summer and autumn of 1917, adding to his victory count with the same aggressive tactics that had made him famous. He transitioned from the nimble Nieuport 17 to the more powerful SE-5A, a British fighter that offered greater speed and heavier armament. The new aircraft suited his hunting style. By the end of August, he had claimed 47 victories, placing him among the highest-scoring aces in the Royal Flying Corps. But the war had other uses for its heroes. A living ace was worth more on propaganda tours than dead in a French field. In the autumn of 1917, Bishop was sent back to Canada to support war bond drives and recruitment efforts. He traveled across the country, giving speeches, shaking hands, and embodying the heroism that the government needed its citizens to believe in. The tour was a success by every measure. Crowds gathered to see the famous pilot. Money flowed into war bonds. Young men signed up to fight, inspired by the legend of Billy Bishop. Yet for Bishop himself, the experience was complicated. He was performing a role, playing the hero while men he knew continued to die over France. The guilt of survival, already present, deepened during these months away from combat. Meanwhile, the air war continued without him. New pilots arrived at the front, flew their 17 days on average, and disappeared. The Albatross gave way to newer German fighters. The Fokker D-7 appeared in 1918, arguably the finest aircraft of the war, and Allied losses mounted again. The names on squadron rosters changed so quickly that returning veterans barely recognized their units. Bishop returned to France in May 1918, now commanding No. 85 Squadron. He was 24 years old, ancient by fighter pilot standards, and he carried the weight of everything he had seen and done. What followed over the next 12 days defied explanation. Between May 27th and June 19, 1918, Billy Bishop claimed 25 additional victories. The rate was extraordinary. More than 2 kills per day, sustained across nearly 2 weeks of flying. No other ace on either side matched this concentrated burst of destruction. By the time it ended, Bishop's official total stood at 72 victories, making him the highest-scoring ace in the British Empire. The final patrol came on June 19th. Bishop took off that morning knowing it might be his last combat flight. Rumors had circulated that he would soon be withdrawn from operations, deemed too valuable to risk further. He flew with the intensity of a man who understood his time was ending. According to his report, he encountered multiple enemy aircraft and shot down 5 of them in a single mission, 5 victories in 1 patrol. It was a fitting conclusion to a combat career defined by extraordinary claims. When he landed, his war was effectively over. The order came shortly afterward. British and Canadian authorities had decided that Billy Bishop would fly no more combat missions. He was simply too important to lose. The Empire's greatest living ace would spend the remainder of the war on the ground, preserved as a symbol rather than risked as a soldier. Bishop accepted the decision with mixed feelings. Part of him was relieved. The mathematics of survival had always worked against fighter pilots, and every additional mission was another roll of the dice. But another part of him resented being removed from the fight while others continued to die. The war would end in November 1918, and Bishop would live to see peace. Many of those he had known would not. In the decades that followed, Billy Bishop became a fixture of Canadian national identity. He wrote a memoir titled Winged Warfare that helped cement his legend. He pursued business ventures with mixed success, trading on his fame in an era that still celebrated war heroes. When the Second World War began, he returned to service as an honorary air marshal in the Royal Canadian Air Force, helping to build the organization that would produce a new generation of pilots. He drank heavily throughout these years. The nightmares never fully stopped. The friends he had lost remained vivid in memory, while their faces faded from public consciousness. Bishop carried the private burdens of a public hero, never speaking of them except in unguarded moments. On September 11, 1956, Billy Bishop died in Palm Beach, Florida. He was 62 years old, his heart weakened by decades of strain and alcohol. Canada mourned him as a national hero. His Victoria Cross and other medals were preserved in museums. An airport in Toronto was named in his honor. The legend seemed secure. Then, in 1982, a Canadian researcher named Brereton Greenhess began examining Bishop's combat record with fresh eyes. Greenhess was not a debunker by inclination. He was a historian employed by the Department of National Defense, tasked with documenting Canadian military aviation history. What he found troubled him. German records, incomplete as they were, showed no losses corresponding to many of Bishop's claims. This was not unusual in itself. Record-keeping during the war was chaotic, and many German units failed to document their casualties properly. But the pattern in Bishop's case was striking. An unusually high proportion of his victories had occurred without witnesses. The claims that could be verified against other sources were far fewer than his official total suggested. Most troubling was the Victoria Cross mission itself. Greenhouse could find no German records of any aerodrome being attacked on the morning of June 2, 1917. No casualties reported, no aircraft losses documented, no after-action reports describing the British raid. The mission that had made Bishop immortal appeared nowhere in the enemy's records. In 1985, the National Film Board of Canada released a documentary titled The Kid Who Couldn't Miss. Directed by Paul Cowan, the film presented the evidence Greenhouse and others had gathered and raised pointed questions about Bishop's claims. It suggested that some victories had been exaggerated, others possibly fabricated entirely. The Victoria Cross mission came under particular scrutiny. The reaction was explosive. Veterans groups across Canada denounced the film as an attack on a national hero. They demanded that it be withdrawn from circulation. Politicians weighed in. The Canadian Senate convened hearings to examine the controversy. For months, the country was consumed by a debate over whether its greatest war hero had been a fraud. The defenders of Bishop's record made substantial arguments. German documentation was notoriously incomplete. Many records had been destroyed during the Second World War. The chaos of aerial combat made precise verification impossible for any pilot on either side. Bishop's claims had been accepted by his contemporaries, men who understood the air war far better than historians working 70 years later. The critics countered that the pattern of unwitnessed claims was too consistent to ignore. Bishop's preference for lone wolf operations, whatever its tactical merits, had the convenient effect of eliminating the possibility of corroboration. The 25 victories in 12 days during 1918 strained credulity. The complete absence of German records for the VC mission raised questions that could not be easily dismissed. In 1986, the Senate subcommittee issued its report. It concluded that the Victoria Cross had been validly awarded and should not be revoked. The documentary was not withdrawn, but additional context was required for future screenings. Officially, the matter was closed. Unofficially, the debate continued. Historians remained divided. In 2002, Brereton Greenhouse published The Making of Billy Bishop, a detailed academic study that systematically analyzed the claims against available evidence. The same year, David Bichot published a biography defending Bishop's record, arguing that Greenhouse applied impossible standards of evidence. Neither book settled the question. The controversy had become permanent, woven into Bishop's legacy as thoroughly as the Victoria Cross itself. Canada's greatest war hero was now also its most contested one. The debate over Billy Bishop cannot be understood without understanding the war he fought. The Air War of 1917 and 1918 was not a clean contest of knights errant, dueling in the sky, whatever the propaganda suggested. It was a brutal, chaotic struggle where young men died in burning aircraft, and victory claims were as much art as science. The aces of the First World War occupied a strange position in the public imagination. Below them, millions of soldiers lived and died in the anonymous horror of the trenches. Artillery killed more men than any other weapon. Machine guns mowed down entire battalions. Individual courage meant nothing against industrial slaughter. But in the sky, or so the story went, individual skills still mattered. A single pilot could make a difference. A single hero could be celebrated by name. This was partly true and mostly propaganda. The reality of aerial combat was far messier than the newspapers acknowledged. Most kills occurred not in swirling dogfights, but in surprise attacks on unsuspecting victims. A pilot who spotted his enemy first and dove from the sun's direction held an overwhelming advantage. Chivalry was a luxury few could afford when survival meant shooting first and asking questions never. The top aces of the war reflected this reality. Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, claimed 80 victories for Germany through methodical, disciplined hunting. René Fonck of France claimed 75 through similar precision. Billy Bishop's 72 placed him third on this grim leaderboard, the highest scoring pilot of the British Empire. These men were not romantic duelists. They were efficient killers who survived by being better at death than their opponents. Victory claims across all nations were notoriously difficult to verify. A pilot would report an enemy aircraft destroyed, and his commanders would accept or reject the claim based on available evidence. Sometimes other pilots witnessed the kill. Sometimes ground observers confirmed a crash. Often, neither was possible. Aircraft fell behind enemy lines, into the sea, or simply disappeared. The fog of war was literal and absolute. Modern researchers applying rigorous standards have challenged the records of many celebrated aces, not just Bishop. Studies suggest that confirmed victories across all air forces were routinely inflated, sometimes by 50% or more. The verification systems of the time were inadequate to the task. Pilots claimed in good faith what they believed they had accomplished, and the chaos of combat made certainty impossible. This context matters for understanding Bishop. He was not unique in having unverified claims. The system that produced his 72 victories was the same system that credited other aces with their totals. If Bishop exaggerated, he did so within a culture where exaggeration was endemic and verification was approximate at best. What we know with certainty about Billy Bishop is substantial. He flew combat missions throughout 1917 and 1918, a period when the average pilot survived barely 2 weeks. He engaged enemy aircraft repeatedly and returned alive when most of his contemporaries did not. He was awarded the Victoria Cross, the Military Cross, the Distinguished Service Order with Bar, and the Distinguished Flying Cross. His commanders considered him one of the most aggressive and effective pilots in the Royal Flying Corps. His courage is not in question. Whatever the precise number of his victories, Bishop repeatedly flew into situations where death was the likely outcome. He attacked formations that outnumbered him. He hunted alone behind enemy lines. He pressed attacks at low altitude where ground fire could kill as easily as enemy fighters. Men who flew with him, including William Barker, himself a Victoria Cross recipient with over 50 victories, respected Bishop's skill and bravery without reservation. What remains uncertain is the accuracy of specific claims, particularly those made without witnesses. The Victoria Cross mission of June 2, 1917, is the most significant example. Bishop's account describes a devastating raid that destroyed or damaged multiple aircraft and killed enemy personnel. German records from the period show no corresponding attack on any aerodrome in the region. Several explanations are possible. German record-keeping was incomplete, and some unit records were lost entirely during the Second World War. The aerodrome Bishop attacked may have filed reports that no longer exist. Alternatively, Bishop may have misidentified his location or the scale of the damage. Or, as his critics suggest, the mission may not have occurred as he described it. We cannot know which explanation is correct. The witnesses are dead. The records are fragmentary. The morning of June 2, 1917 remains shrouded in the same gray mist that Bishop flew through more than a century ago. The same uncertainty applies to his final frenzy of victories in 1918. 25 kills in 12 days is an extraordinary rate, unmatched by any other ace in such a concentrated period. It may represent the apex of Bishop's skill, a pilot at the height of his powers fighting with the desperation of a man who knew his time was ending. It may also represent claims that a more rigorous verification system would have reduced. We cannot know. The evidence does not permit certainty in either direction. What the controversy reveals is perhaps more interesting than what it conceals. Nations need heroes, especially in times of total war. The British Empire in 1917 was bleeding to death on the Western Front. Hundreds of thousands of men had died at the Somme. Hundreds of thousands more would die at Passchendaele. The public needed something to believe in, some evidence that individual courage still mattered, that the slaughter had meaning. Billy Bishop emerged at precisely the moment when such a hero was most desperately needed. Albert Ball, Britain's previous champion, had died in May 1917. The aces of Germany seemed to dominate the sky. Into this vacuum stepped a young Canadian with a gift for killing and an instinct for publicity. The propaganda machinery of the empire amplified his achievements, and a legend was born. Whether that legend was entirely accurate mattered less than what it accomplished. Bishop gave the public hope. He sold war bonds. He inspired recruitment. He proved that the empire could produce heroes to match the enemy. The function he served was real, whatever the precise truth of his claims. The private Billy Bishop was more complicated than the public image allowed. His letters from the front reveal a man who understood fear intimately, who watched friends die and wondered when his turn would come. He drank heavily to manage the stress of combat. He suffered nightmares that persisted for decades after the war. The dashing hero of the newspapers was also a traumatized young man carrying wounds that never fully healed. After the war, Bishop struggled to find his place in a world that no longer needed fighter aces. His business ventures largely failed. His fame opened doors but did not guarantee success behind them. He drifted through the interwar years, a living monument to a conflict that most people preferred to forget. The Second World War gave him purpose again. As honorary Air Marshal of the Royal Canadian Air Force, he helped build the organization that would train thousands of pilots for another generation of aerial warfare. He gave speeches, visited squadrons, and embodied the continuity between the old war and the new. But his health was failing. The years of drinking and stress had taken their toll. When he died in 1956, Billy Bishop was mourned as an uncomplicated hero. The controversy that would later divide Canada was still decades away. The questions about his record had not yet been asked, or if asked, had been quietly set aside. He went to his grave believing, or at least claiming, that everything he had reported was true. The controversy that emerged in the 1980s was not really about Billy Bishop. It was about how nations construct their heroes and what happens when historical evidence challenges cherished myths. Canada had built part of its military identity around Bishop's legend. Questioning that legend felt, to some, like questioning the nation itself. But history does not exist to comfort nations. It exists to pursue truth, however uncomfortable that truth might be. The honest answer to the question of Billy Bishop is that we do not know and cannot know how many of his 72 claimed victories were genuine. The evidence permits neither vindication nor condemnation. He exists in the space between verified fact and accepted legend, a hero whose heroism is certain and whose record is not. Perhaps that ambiguity is appropriate. War itself exists in such spaces, between the official reports and the lived reality, between what nations need to believe and what actually happened. Billy Bishop flew through the fog of war and never fully emerged from it. Billy Bishop remains Canada's highest-scoring ace. His Victoria Cross still rests in the Canadian War Museum, the citation unchanged since 1917. The airport in Toronto still bears his name. The legend endures, even as the questions persist. The controversy will never be resolved. The witnesses are gone, the record's incomplete, the truth buried somewhere in the archives of a war that consumed 10 million lives. What we know is that a young man from Owen Sound flew into the most dangerous skies on Earth and survived when survival was the exception. He killed, or claimed to kill, 72 enemy pilots. He carried that weight for 40 years after the guns fell silent. The morning of June 2nd, 1917 remains what it always was, a gray dawn over occupied France. A lone aircraft diving toward a German aerodrome, a story told by one man who never wavered in its telling. Whether it happened exactly as he said, only Billy Bishop ever knew. He took the answer with him when he died, leaving behind a legend that Canada still cannot quite believe and cannot bear to doubt.